let them cows out? Moo, 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 moo. Who let them cows out? Moo, 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 moo. Who let them cows out? Moo, 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 moo. Who let them cows out? And the farmer shouted, who let them cows out? Moo, 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 moo. Who let them cows out? Moo, 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 moo. Help me get them darn cows inside, back in time for milking. Get back, bossy, bad bossy, get back, you cut chewing animal. Moo, 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 moo.
Good morning. How is everybody today? I guess you know the deal again, right? Glad to see everybody out today. This week, if you did not know, this weekend is Pastor Chad's anniversary, and they decided to go out of town. And for those of you who may be visiting or whatever, my name is Kip Gulledge. I am the creative pastor here. That's what they call me, at least. And today I am the fill-in. I like to tell people this because I pray the Lord uses something I say today to some good. But if not, please come back again whenever the real pastor's here, if you will. Got a lot to cover today, you guys. I think this is the first time that I've ever been worried I had too much information rather than not enough. But I will try to get you out of here as quick as I can. Got to get these pre-jitters out of the way. Got a question for you guys. If I were to ask, for a show of hands, everyone in here that believes they have been raised in the country, how many hands would I get? Yeah. Pretty much about all of us. And it's a perspective thing because if you compare us to New York or Los Angeles, whatever, all of us are from the country. But, you know, I married in the Chirral. My wife's been Chirral, and I pick at her all the time because I told her that Chirral people were city people to us back when I was coming up. I had a grandmother that lived in Bennettsville, and we would go visit her like every other weekend. And so we always came through Chirral going to Bennettsville, and we thought it was the city because there was a McDonald's and there was a shopping center and a grocery store. I grew up in a town of 500 people. In case I tell that quite often, but just in case you didn't know that. Had a baby sister that as we would come through Chirral, my parents, the rule was that when we went by McDonald's, mine and the middle sister's job was to get her attention other than McDonald's because she would start crying and begging for McDonald's. So right when we would come down number 9, we'd get right at McDonald's. We'd like, oh, look. And, you know, the baby would look out the window, what? And McDonald's would go by over here. And so we didn't have to put up with her crying because, that was a treat. Do you guys remember when McDonald's was a treat? It was not an everyday occasion. Do you guys remember when we go to Sonic, when Sonic was first here, and they put a little plastic animal on the edge of the cup? We thought that was the greatest thing in the world. We thought it was Christmas for us because we got a free toy. Now, you know, it's no big deal now. I can remember we'd never heard of Walmart. And I'm not talking about the Super Walmart or the one that was there before Super Walmart. I'm talking about way on down here, the old shopping center Walmart. We're going way back, if you will. Anyway, I think if you had a litmus test to decide whether or not you were raised in the country or not, though, one of the litmus tests would be if you grew up near or around or in a cow pasture. Would you agree? I grew up next door to a cow pasture. My mother's neighbors, or mom and dad's neighbors, had cows and horses and all kind of stuff. Pardon? That's right. And we were in town, and they had cows. We were in the city limits of Ruby, if you will. I learned something this week because I got this thought process of cows, and I like to let you guys kind of know where I get my thought process from. But I got this thought process, and I got to reading this thing, and I learned something growing up in the country that I never knew. And you guys are going to laugh at me probably. There's a bunch of you out there probably knew this. But like I said, the neighbor had a cow pasture next to us, and right where the gate was, they could throw open the gate if they had to go in and do some work or whatever, and they left the gate open with the animals up in there. Now, right here on the ground, there was a grate. It could be made out of, sometimes they're made out of metal, sometimes they're made out of wood, but it's like slats or just, bars or whatever it is. Never knew what that was for until I got to reading this week, and I thought, and it explained that the animals are afraid to step on those, so they won't cross the threshold of that gate, even if you leave the gate open. And I thought, there's a sermon in that. There's got to be a sermon in that. And I dug and I worked, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get this thing. I've got it. Because Chad gave me forewarning, a couple of weeks forewarning, and I told him, I said, I got my word. I just got to put it together. And I wrestled, and I fought, and I wrestled, and I fought. And it finally, the Lord said, y'all have to forgive me because I get, y'all know when I speak, I get like this, but I'm going to tell you why. I'm chasing rabbits here, but I want you to understand this. I spend a lot of time with the Lord prepared. And I don't mean, I'm not a crier. I'm not an emotional person. They'll tell you that. But when you lay up with the Lord, you get, you get raw and you get emotional. So the slightest little thing, I'm sorry. Chad, we laugh on Monday morning. He says, could you get through it without crying a little bit? Whatever. But I'm going to apologize to you because it just, knowing that God spoke to me, just the simple fact that he spoke to me, even if it was telling me we're not going to do that, we're going to do something else, which is where I'm going, because I thought the great thing, and finally the Lord told me, he said, we can do the cow thing, but we're not going to do your cow thing, we're going to do my cow thing. And all of a sudden I found this scripture, this story in the Bible that I had never heard, and just locked in on it, and the Lord has fed me through that story, if you will. I wanted to share a couple of facts with you about cows. I mean, most people say cows have multiple stomachs. Well, actually, cow has one stomach, but it's divided into 4 compartments. The cow can chew their cud up to 8 hours a day. They chew their food that they've eaten up to, because what they do is they swallow it, they let it digest a little bit, they bring it back up, and they chew on it some more. I know that's gross, and I thought about this, and I thought, I've eaten hot dogs 3 or 4 times in the day like that. But I've never, anyway. Cows are considered sacred in some countries. Hinduism believes that cows are sacred animals, they're gods, and there's strict laws against abuse or death or anything like that. My daddy, in his infinite wisdom, used to have the saying, he said, to any man that will play with snakes and will not eat a steak, he has problem trusting. Because, them cats over there, they get the whistle and make the snakes come up out the basket, but they won't eat a hamburger. So anyway, that was one of my daddy's Calvinisms, if you will. Nikki, if you will, put the picture of the cows up, please. Not these cows right here. So I'm fixing to go into this story, and it covers about 3 or 4 chapters, and I'm going to condense it, and I'm going to paraphrase it and try to get it down to what we need to know and where we need to focus. But I want you to, if you will, take these cows and their calves and get that picture in your mind, because we're going to come back to these guys in just a little while, and I want you to be able to just think about these, if you will. I'm coming today out of 1 Samuel, starting somewhere around chapter 4, but like I say, I'm going to do some paraphrasing, condensing, and we're going to cover multiple chapters, if you will. But we started out at a time in history. We're starting at a time in history in which Israel has become a great nation. Now, in Exodus, earlier in the Old Testament, they've been brought out of bondage from Egypt. They were slaves. God brought them out. They wandered in the wilderness. God led them to the Holy Land. It's been a long time. And Israel has now developed into a great nation. It's taken a long time, and they've come a long way. And everything is going well for them. God has blessed them, but there's one problem. They have one problem. They're neighbors. Because they're neighboring a country where the Philistines live. And the Philistines are a godless nation. They worship idols. They have their gods, but they don't know our God, if you will, or the God of Israel. And so Israel puts up with it for so long, and they finally say, you know what? We need to do something about this. We need to go over there and put a whipping on this crowd and take care of them, get them out of our lives, if you will. And so that's what they do. They put a plan in action. They get their army together. But back then, they met on the battlefield. It wasn't, they didn't sneak in and all that. It was like they met on the battlefield, and they stood against each other, and then they fought, and they blew a whistle or a horn, if you will. And so they get ready to fight, and they roll out, and they throw down. And lo and behold, Israel loses the first battle. And they're like, wait a minute, what just happened here? We've come out of bondage. We fought many a fight. We've never lost. What in the world happened here? And so they got nervous, and they got together and started talking. One of them in the crowd, in their infinite wisdom, they said, I got it. I know exactly what's wrong. We didn't carry the ark with us. Because every time before we carried the ark with us, we came out of Egypt, we built the ark, put the tablets in it. We've been taught through Pastor Chad that the ark, it represents the presence of God. And where the ark is parked, there are blessings that follow. So they say, go get the ark, and tomorrow we're going to take the ark with us to the battle. Actually, that night they took the ark to the campsite where the soldiers were, and when they brought the ark into the campground, the soldiers went to cheering and hollering, yeah, we're ready to go. We're going to put it on them tomorrow. And so the Philistines across the way heard the cheering, and they sent a spy in, and the spy comes back and says, they've got their ark. And they say, oh, we are done for now, because this is the God that led them against Pharaoh and won. This is the God that led them against the giants in the land of milk and honey and won. We don't stand a chance when they've got this ark. But then they started talking some more, and they said, well, you know what? We made it yesterday. We whipped them yesterday. So you know what? If we fight twice as hard, maybe we can take this battle. And so the next day comes, and they run up and they lock horns, and Israel loses again. As a matter of fact, they lost about 40,000 men that day. A huge loss, crushing loss. And to add insult to injury, the ark is captured by the Philistines. They have taken it from Israel, and they have taken it to their homeland. They are celebrating. We have captured this trophy, this great thing, this God of Israel. And so what they do when they get home, they parade it in the streets, and they celebrate and everything, and they take the ark to their temple that they have. And inside this temple, they have a statue of a god named Dagon. And they put the ark at the feet of Dagon, because Israel's God has been captured and is now being put at the feet of their God, who in their mind is almighty and all-powerful. And so they go on celebrating, and fast forward to the next day, they come into the temple. And Dagon is laying face down in the temple. And, what would you have thought? I mean, something happened over the night. Well, this ark knocked Dagon down. That's the obvious thing we would say. Well, they say, you know what? We must have had an earthquake last night. Something must have knocked him down, but I don't know what it could be. And so they set him up. And I'm sure that they brought in the best workers and the best carpenters and everything, and they shored him up, and they propped him up and put poles and everything, because they didn't want him to fall again. And so they leave, fast forward to the next day. They come in, and Dagon is laying on the ground again. And this time his hands and his head are broken clean off. Surely they would have gotten a clue at that point. Surely something's up here. Well, what they decided was that this spot that Dagon had laid down on twice was apparently a holy spot for Dagon, and that he wanted to be in that spot. Therefore, they moved Dagon to that spot. And they decided that they would get that evil ark, that whatever the Israelites had been worshiping. They're going to get it out, and they send it to a local city to be stored. Well, immediately when the ark gets stored in this city, plagues break out. All the people get tumors on their body, and mice and rats run through the city and tear it up, basically. And so they put up with this for so long, and somebody says, hey, get this thing out of here. We send it somewhere else. And so they send it to another city. And immediately in that same city, the same plagues start to take place. And so they decide they'll move it again. All this time, they still haven't got a clue. They just think as long as they move it somewhere else. Well, after the 5th time of moving this thing, the 6th city heard they were sending it to them, and they said, oh, we don't want it. Do not send that thing to us, because we've seen what it's done to the other 5 cities. And from there on out, everybody else said, don't want it, get rid of it, do whatever you want to, just don't send it here. All of a sudden, they've got a problem. This thing is tearing them up. Tumors, these animals running rampant. And they finally call in, now they call in their religious leaders. Now, these aren't men of God. These are sorcerers or whatever, but it's their worship leaders. And they said, what are we going to do? Well, the worship leader says, here's what you got to do. You got to send that thing back to Israel. But not only do you have to send this thing back to Israel, you have to send a guilt offering with it. Here's what we suggest you do. Since there were 5 cities that were affected with the plagues, we suggest you make 5 golden statues of tumors, 5 golden statues of mice or rats. And what you're going to do is you're going to place this ark and these golden objects on this cart, and you're going to send it to Israel. Now, that sounds like they're kind of feeling bad about what they've done, and they want to make amends. But see, the gold objects were a test. See, they're still not convinced that there is a God, and that when they send these objects, that they're going to even do anything. But they go ahead and they start preparing and they get ready. Now, I've got 5 points, if you will, on this little story that I'd like to discuss with you. Point number 1. Anytime you decide to work things out on your own, you're asking for trouble. The beginning of the story, Israel decided they're going to get rid of these heathens. Not once did they sit down and ask God what he wanted. They never prayed. They never asked for his will. They never asked for his help. They decided that it was time for them to do something. They got the big head because things have been so good for so long. And they decided, you know what, God, you've got us this far. You've got us in a really, really good spot. Right now, if you'll take a back seat and just let us take the reins right now, we're going to do things how we want to do them for a little while. Does that sound familiar at all? Because there's a lot of people this day that God's brought you out of a lot of things. He's done a lot for you, and he's got you in a really, really good place. And we get there, and we say, Lord, I got it now. Thank you. I really appreciate it, but thank you. But right now, I don't really need to know what you think. I'm just going to do what I think. So anytime you decide to work things out on your own, you're asking for trouble. Point number 2. My God is a he, not an it. The Philistines, when they captured the ark, they paraded the ark through the streets. And they professed to everyone, we have captured the God of Israel. You see, they thought the God of Israel was a magic box that when they prayed over it or when they put it somewhere, that magic oozed out of the box and wonderful things started happening for Israel. They did not understand that the ark was just a representation. The living God was still in control. God became an it. God became the box. Now that sounds ludicrous to us. But the reality of it is, when Israel started thinking about the fact that they didn't win the first battle, they didn't drop to their knees and they didn't pray to God, look, we're sorry. We know we didn't confer with you to begin with. We know we should have. But what they did is they decided they decided the ark is what they needed to take out to the battle. So even the believers, even the people who had come in contact with God, decided that at that time, God wasn't it. It was that box. So even the non-believers and the believers, it doesn't matter. It can go either way. Israel, as we have been taught by Pastor Chad, is a representation of the church. It's a representation of us, a representation of free worship. It's that easy for us as a group of believers to turn God into an it. You don't think it's that easy? If the only time that you spend time with the Lord is you come in those doors and you come sit down and spend your hour in here so that other people can see that you got here and you did your time today, your God might be an it and not a he. If the people around you, the only way that they know that you're a Christian is because you've got a Jesus sticker or a cross on the bumper of your car, that might be an it and not a he for you. If this right here is not the Word of God, but for you it's a weapon that you can run around and hit people over the head and tell them what's wrong with them and what they need to do to change, and you go into hell. If this is a weapon, then your God is an it. It's not a he. If you come down every Sunday to pray about your problems, and you're praying to these wooden steps right here, and you're not praying to an all-powerful God, your God is an it. Your God is not a he. I'm here to tell you, God is a living being. The Bible tells me that I am created in his image. God is a he, not an it. Point number 3, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. Ask Dagon about that. Bible says that we'll all acknowledge his power one day. If you don't do it now, you'll do it one day. Dagon, and it's not just people. I mean, obviously it's the birds, the animals, the inanimate objects. Because Dagon, a concrete statue, if you will, he put him on the floor. He bent his knees and he put his face on the floor, and that was symbolic. Point number 4. God does not want your guilt offering. When the nation decided they were going to send the ark back, and they decided they were going to send the golden rats and they're going to send the golden tumors, that wasn't a sacrifice for them. That wasn't even an offering. That was just, we're trying to do something in order to, basically what they said was, there is no God. We don't believe it. But just in case, we're going to send these trinkets and these shiny little things over. Just in case. We're not 100% sure. We don't really believe it. But just in case, we're going to send these little things that we think are valuable. And when they get over there, if by chance he is real and if he does exist, then maybe he'll bless us and he'll forgive us for what we've done, and we can get rid of all this mess. When you say it out loud, it doesn't sound, well, that's just crazy thinking, whatever. There are people in the church today, in this church and other churches, that when it comes time to walk up here and do that right there, you know what they do? They think to themselves, I'm not sure if there really is a God. I'm not sure if he really can bless me or not. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk down here with a $5 bill. Just something that looks, it looks good. And I'm going to throw it in the bucket. Now, I don't really know if he can bless it or not. I don't know if he's even there or not. But I'm going to put something in there. That's not an offering. That's not a tithe. The Bible says when you give with a cheerful heart. Because what happened was they made God angry. They made him angry by sending those things on that cart to Israel. You almost do an injustice to come down here and say, I don't know if you're there or not. I don't know if you're going to bless this or not. But please look at it because I'm going to do something just in case you're there. You might as well not believe. You might as well not even believe. Number 5, just because you won't accept God, it does not mean you can get rid of him. They saw the statue laying on the floor twice. They saw 5 cities eaten with tumors and rats and all kind of plagues. And when they brought in their smartest religious leaders, their answer to the problem was send it back, get rid of it. There never was a discussion to say, you know what, there might be something to this fella. There might be something to this God. And if we'll turn to him, we might can fix this mess that we're in. Never occurred to them. Their answer was, get rid of it. Send it away. We don't need it here anymore. Had they gotten on their hands and knees, I guarantee you, they gotten on their hands and knees, and they said, we're sorry, we believe, we want this God of Israel, it would have been 180 degrees. They would have been blessed beyond measure. Same thing happens today. It happens every day. You see, I'm trying to think of the best way to tell you this. The world thinks if it can get rid of prayer in the schools, if it can control what's said in the pulpit, the world thinks if they can tell you what bathroom they're going to use, that they can get rid of God. Never once turning to him and saying, maybe we'll give this a try. Maybe we'll look into this. We're just going to get rid of it. We're going to send it out. And that's what we're seeing right now, if you will, as a nation, in our society. The same thing happened in Philistine at that time. Now, out of all that, turn to your neighbor. I'm going to pull a Chad trick, if you will. Please turn to your neighbor and ask your neighbor, what does any of this have to do with cows? Because I don't know how long I've been up here, but I hadn't said cow not one time, have I? Nick, if you'll put that scripture up for me, please. And I will explain to you. Because 1 Samuel 6, 7 through 12 says, now then, get a new cart ready. This is how the ark is going back to Israel. This is how they decided to do it. Get a cart ready with 2 cows that have calved and have never been yoked. Hitch the cows to the cart, but take their calves away and pin them up. Take the ark of the Lord and put it on the cart, and in a chest beside it, put the gold objects you are sending back to him as a guilt offering. Send it on its way, but keep watching it. If it goes up to its own territory toward Beth Shemesh, then the Lord has brought this great disaster on us. But if it does not, then we will know that it was not his hand that struck us, but that all this happened by chance. So they did this. They took 2 such cows and hitched them to the cart and pinned up their calves. They placed the ark of the Lord on the cart, and along with it the chest containing gold rats and tumors. And the cows went straight up toward Beth Shemesh, keeping on the road and lowing all the way. Lowing all the way. Please pay attention to that. They did not turn to the right or the left. The rulers of the Philistines followed them as far as the border of Beth Shemesh. Please put those pictures up. Remember these guys that I asked you to remember? From the time this story started to the time they put the cows on, put the ark on the cart, it lasts about 7 months. So all this time period that I've tried to condense for you has been a 7-month period. For 7 months, these guys have been in the field doing what cows do. Chewing grass, making milk, taking care of their babies. That's all they've ever known. All they've ever known. That's all they know how to do for all their lives. But I'm just trying to give you an idea. 7 months, all this other mess going on. These guys are in the field. And so they decide what they're going to do is they're going to build a cart. These are the leaders to bring the cart back. They decide they're going to build a cart, a brand new cart. They want it to be brand spanking new so that it will run straight. Then they decide they're going to go out and get 2 milk cows that have never had a yoke put on them before. And they're going to hook those to the cart. And they got to make sure that those cows have babies. And they're going to take those babies to the cow's home and they're going to lock them up in the barn. And then they're going to send all the trinkets and the ark and everything on its way. Now, that sounds good, doesn't it? All sounds like a plan. But you see, it was all a devised plan. It was all, they were trying to play the system, if you will. Because number one, milk cows don't pull carts. And if they've never had a harness or anything put on them, if you know cows do 2 things when you walk in the pasture with them. They run from you or they run at you. But you don't put a harness on them, especially if they've never had one on. They know that. They also know that if they take those babies away and they lock those babies in a barn somewhere down here, which is the opposite direction of where they're going, those cows' instincts are to turn around and go after those babies. So they've set that in plan. And they put the ark on the cart, and they put the gold trinkets and everything, and they stand back, and they said, let's see what happens. Because if these cows go 2 separate ways, because they've got to pull the same weight at the same time. I mean, it's not as easy as just starting walking. They've got to be trained. If they turn this way or they turn that way, or one wants to eat and one doesn't, or if they turn back and go to their babies like they're supposed to do, all this stuff is what they're supposed to do. If they do all of that, we can say it wasn't Israel's God. It was all chance. This was all something to happen. And you know what? We're just going to keep this ark, and we're still the good guys. And we're still winning this thing. And so they stand back, and they say, let's see what happens. And those cows start walking. And they walk to the road that leads to Israel. They never turned. They never bent down to eat grass. And the scripture says, as they walked, they didn't turn to the right or the left. They kept on the road, lowing all the way. Do you know what lowing is? I sang Away in the Manger a lot when I was little. Everybody knows that song. But there's a verse in Away in the Manger. I think it's the 2nd or 3rd verse, whatever it says. The cattle are lowing, the baby awakes, but little Lord Jesus no crying he makes. Lowing is crying. It's pain. It's hurt. It's crying out. Do you know why they were crying out? They weren't oblivious to the fact that they had walked away from their babies. They knew they were leaving their offspring for what they had to do. But they stayed on that road and they walked straight. They never looked back at the babies. They never even hesitated. For for 10 miles. It was a 10-mile walk. And the people of the Philistines, they followed them for 10 miles. They stayed behind them. And I guarantee you, every step of the way, they kept saying, they fixing to turn. They fixing to turn. I know they fixing to turn around. They got to. And at some point, I think it sunk into them, like, wait a minute. They're not going to turn around. Everything that should have happened did not happen. This thing should not happen this way. And I have to think in my head, okay, I'm going to paint a picture for you. You see this cart going down the road. You see it heading for the destination, and you're these Philistines. Now, you think in your head that there's a golden, beautiful box adorned with jewels and shiny. God told when the ark was created, the deal that God made was once a year, the high priest of Israel, went into the Holy of Holies, which is where the ark was stored. And one thing he had to do every year was for his family and for his sins, he had to pour out bull's blood on top of the ark. And then when he got through doing that, he had to get goat's blood and pour that over the top of the ark. It's called the seat of atonement on the top of the ark. And this was a blood offering, and this kept the wrath of God from destroying Israel year after year after year. Understand that years and years and years and years have passed by. There has been blood and blood and blood and blood poured on this thing. No one's allowed to touch the ark. The ark was never cleaned. They didn't have pressure washers or anything. This thing was nasty. It was covered in dried blood, probably had blowflies. And we think of the ark as something beautiful, but if you'll think about it, it was not. At that time, it was an ugly, probably smelly, nasty-looking thing. And I can't help but wonder and think that as this cart is being pulled in Israel with this ugly, nasty thing, and the Philistines finally understand that these cows are not going to turn back, they had to think, for what? What are they? What is this about? Because this thing is just a box. It's just a nasty. Why? Why are they doing this? The reason I bring that up to you is because right now on number 9 highway, there's people that ride by right now as we sit here, and they see your car parked in that parking lot. And you know what they ask when they go by? For what? What are they in there for? It's just a building. It's just a neon on the things. They don't understand. And we have got to do a better job in making them understand that this is not just some nasty old box. This is our God. We come here to worship and just spend a few minutes with Him, if you will. Just get a little close to Him. So their plan was destined to fail. These cows pulled that cart against all odds to where they and again, I've condensed this story, but if you'll go back and read it, there's a lot more in between the lines here. But they took it to a specific spot. They just didn't stop when they went to a specific spot and stopped. And the people of Israel rejoiced, that the presence of God was back in their lives. God had returned. They made some more bad decisions after that, but we won't go into that. But these cows, when they stopped, these cows, they gave up everything they knew. They gave up their family. They gave up their life. They didn't know anything else other than being a cow, and they gave it all up that day. Because I would like to tell you that there was a celebration, and they made these guys, they put them in a pasture house. Here's what happened. They took the cart that day, and they tore the cart apart, and they built an altar. And they built a fire, and they sacrificed those 2 cows. And at first, I thought that was sad. I knew my wife wasn't going to hear that as much as she loved animals. But then God directed me to Romans chapter 12, verse 1. And there's just a few words in there. It says, present yourself as a living sacrifice. Had these cows been able to, they would have unhitched themselves from that cart and they would have thrown themselves on that fire, because they understood that their job was to carry the burden of God that day. We should be more like milk cows. If you understand that your job in this world is to carry the burden of God and to take it to people in this world, nothing else should matter. Your children, the cows, they left their children. They cried. They knew they'd left their children. Everything they had ever known, they did everything that God asked them to do, up to giving their life. So, the question of the day is not who let the cows out. The question of the day is, will you be a milk cow for God? If you will, close your eyes and bow your head for me. Father, thank you so much. You know I struggle with this. I hope I've done you justice in some way, Lord. I hope that I've said something that means something to somebody. Thank you for these people, Lord, to come out. Lord, I ask that you give them a resolve to be a milk cow. That sounds crazy, I know. But I just ask that you help them to understand that you come first, Lord. Nothing else matters. Father, I just ask that you put your hand on this congregation. If there's somebody here that needs prayer today, Lord, if there's somebody here that needs salvation, whatever it may be, Lord, I ask that you just give them the strength to ask, because that's all it takes, Lord. It's just to ask.